Let's get to a part of the business world that still has a lot more work to do. We're talking about women in leadership positions. Now, here in the US, women account for about 30% of board seats. That's less than a third. Sure, 34 more seats were added in the first 2 months of this year for S&P 500 companies, but we're still not even close to where we should be. And of course, we can't forget about the gender pay gap that hasn't changed much in the last 2 decades. Women still earn 77 cents for every dollar men earn for work of equal value. Our next guest says we will never have full equality if we don't have financial equality. Let's bring her in. Tracy Byrnes, financial advisor at UBS, joining us now. Thank you for joining us, Tracy. So break this down. I mean, it was Women's Equality Day just on Saturday here. Why is the gap still not closing at a fast enough pace here?
Yeah, first of all, shout out to your producers. That was a beautiful segue. But I will say a lot of it has to do with the fact that women are still abdicating financial decisions to their partner, Rachelle. And I'm not sure why, except that life happens and we tend to delegate responsibilities. And sadly, we don't meet back at the table to discuss them. You know, while we have to celebrate the women that fought for our right to vote, the Women's Equality Day has sort of evolved into this, day that we shine a light on a ton of advocates who are supporting women's equality. But as you pointed out, if we don't have financial equality, we'll never be equal. And that doesn't necessarily mean, Rachelle, that you need to earn the same amount as your partner. It just means you need to all be on the same page. And that's where the gap is.
You know, what's really interesting, too, is even as we look across the disbursement of so many homes, so many families and jobs over the past couple of years following the pandemic, as there's been more virtual employment or hybrid employment, too, begs the question, has there been any moderation? Has there been any kind of reassessment? And how does that factor into the livability, into where people have migrated towards? And I thought that was particularly interesting as part of this most recent report, where women are finding the best wages.
Yeah, so we started this research. Our chairwoman launched this back in 2018 just to get a sense of what women were doing and what they weren't doing, quite frankly. And Brad, to your point, post-COVID, more women said, I really should figure this out. I really should learn about this for the sake of my family. Still not getting off their hands, by the way, but they're starting to realize they should. Now, our most recent iteration, we looked at women now who are breadwinners, because more and more households, women are bringing in the larger paycheck. They're still abdicating, Brad. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that women, especially in heterosexual couples, are still taking on those traditional gender roles, right? So we work all day, we come home, we got to make sure that Johnny has his lunch and, your daughter has her ballet slippers and all the things. And you turn to your partner and you're like, please do something. And so you abdicate the long-term financial decisions because in your heart, well, that's not going to hurt the wheels on the bus. I need to keep the wheels on the bus moving here. Short term, long term, let's push that off. The problem is they never come together. I often say, think of your household like a small business. If you were to delegate something to a worker, you would one day once a week have a meeting and say, so what'd you learn this week? And I think households need to do this more and more. You do not need to earn the same as your counterpart in your household, but you need to understand what you have, where the money is, and how to access it.
And Tracy, it can be hard because having these financial conversations, a lot of people don't even have them before they get into relationships. How do they sort of reset that so that they can really take more empowerment of their financial decisions and perhaps do a little more to close the wage gap?
Yeah, so two things. One, it is not rocket science. Don't be afraid. I think so many women think they need to be a professional to ask. And I say women, people in general, are afraid to ask the questions. It's okay. I mean, if you're having your gallbladder out, you're going to ask a lot of questions, right? Women ask 50,000 questions on how to get their butt firmer, but they're afraid to ask what's in their bank account. Ask questions. That's first. And second, I would say schedule time with your partner. If you're going for a walk or if you're going out to dinner, just ask one question. You don't have to make the whole conversation about money, but one question. Do we have life insurance? Where is it? How do I access it? If you have kids, how are we paying for college? Do we have 529 plans? If so, how do I access them? And if you do nothing, please go home and find out all the usernames and passwords to all your existing investment accounts. Because I'm Sicilian, we say, God forbid, your partner gets hit by that proverbial bus on the way home from work, do you know how to find the money you have and access it? And if you can't answer those questions, that has to be your starting spot.